Hello everyone. So till now we have completed two chapters, or rather two units, I should say. That is the first and the second one. And today we shall be starting another unit, that is Unit 3. So let's quickly go through the syllabus. So in Unit 3 we shall be studying about biodiversity and conservation. Okay, broadly the topic is biodiversity and conservation related. Okay, under which we shall be learning about the various topics which you are seeing in the slides right now. Okay, so let's begin the first portion. So the first portion is about definition, levels of biodiversity, that is of three types: genetic, species and ecosystem, biogeographic zones of India, biodiversity patterns and global biodiversity hotspots. Okay, so the definition says diversity is the diversified form of life, that is the variety of life forms available on planet Earth. Okay, the word biodiversity comprises of two words, that is bios, which means life, and diversity, that means variety. Okay, it includes all the associated forms, all the varied life forms and its associated contents. Okay, that is the genes they contain, the ecosystem they are part of, the ecological processes, various cultural and scientific aspects as well. The term biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth at all its levels. Okay, that is from genes to ecosystems, and can encompass the evolutionary, ecological and cultural process that sustain life. So what is the range of biodiversity? Where can you see biodiversity? From very small particular area to a very large area. Okay, yes, for example, you can observe biodiversity in a aquarium, small aquarium, and then to a greater extent you can observe biodiversity in the entire planet Earth. Okay, why is biodiversity important? Because it provides us benefits in terms of the nutritional, cultural, health and climate related benefits. Okay, such as biodiversity, we know the various food resources are obtained from plants and animals, isn't it? That is, they are solving the purpose of nutritional values. And secondary, the cultural aspects. Okay, many of the cultures, traditions and folklore practices are related with that of the plants and animals. Okay, that is the diversities. Health, obviously from the various sources of plants and animals we obtain important medicines. Okay, life-saving medicines. So in that regard, and as well as the biodiversity, the plants and animals, the living composition of the earth interacts with the abiotic composition of the earth. Okay, to replenish the air, right, to purify the air, and in turn it protects our health. Okay, it purifies the environment. Apart from those, the biodiversity is also important in terms of economic, ecological, recreational, and scientific means. Okay, economic. Okay, in terms of economic, let us see in this particular slide. What you can see that the raw materials consumption and the products can be obtained from various sources, isn't it? Okay, as for example, the coal and petroleum which we are obtaining from the ground. Okay, that is used, okay, for running the vehicles as well as various other machines, isn't it? And that raw materials is providing us economy, isn't it? Okay, some of the products can be directly obtained from the sources, right, such as the vegetables, the crops can be directly obtained and sold in their pure form, raw form, whereas some other minerals, as or you can say the petroleum, fossil fuel, etc., they need to be processed, okay, in order to make it marketable. Okay, many livelihoods such as the farmers, fishers and timber workers are dependent on biodiversity. Yes, of course, right? The diversified optional aspect of the living organism as well as non-living entities, they provide us. Okay, here we shall be dealing about the living organisms as it is related to that of biodiversity. Okay, so in terms of biodiversity, we can see various sorts of food resources can be obtained directly, or we can cook it, right? That means the raw material consumption can be is possible, or the byproduct of any raw materials, byproduct of the food materials can also be utilized. Okay, and most of the farmers or traders, fishers, right, timber workers, they are all dependent upon this biodiversity because they sell the different forest products or as well as non-forest products such as this one, honey, isn't it? Honey, wax, etc., or the rubber, sap, etc. they are totally dependent on those products for their livelihood. Ecological life support, obviously the various contents, various living organisms play a very crucial role in maintaining a balance in the particular ecosystem in which they exist. Okay, recreation, many of the recreational activities such as uh, sightseeing, right, trekking, camping, birds watching, fishing, etc., okay, is possible due to the due to the diversified nature of our biological world. Okay, so just imagine everything would if everything would be in black and white. Okay, and there are only one type kind of trees, okay, each and everywhere, then would we enjoy it? No, not at all, definitely not, right? So some this biological diversity, they somewhat they implicate a sense of psychological aspect in our mind. So as for example, when you observe the beautiful scenery, okay, maybe of the mountains, of the flower blooming, or at the night sky the stars twinkling, we feel very nice, right? It is psychologically, it makes us feel very happy, isn't it? So this is one of the very important aspect of, as well as very nice aspect of biodiversity. Then cultural, many of the practices are related to what, many of the traditional practices are associated with the plants, animals, or worshipping the trees or any sort of animals, isn't it? So it has been we have been practicing it from the ancient times, isn't it? So the cultural aspect of biodiversity can also be felt in this regard. And scientific, obviously we know scientific means the way how a particular ecology is sustaining, right? Now what is ecology? It is the study of the relationship between an organism and its environment. Okay, okay, as well as the relationship which it maintains with the other organisms as well. So and from the diversified life forms which exist in a particular area, we can understand the scientific we can understand the ecological knowledge, we can have a good understanding about the various important contents, okay, such as in terms of medicinal value or in terms of any other products related. Okay, now levels of biodiversity, there are three levels of biodiversity: species, genetic, and ecosystem diversity. Okay, what is genetic diversity? Suppose each and every of the living organism is composed of genes, that is DNA, RNA, etc. So each of the gene coding is different in different individuals. Okay, just like the fingerprint, as the fingerprint is different of every individual, there likewise the genes are also different in every individual. So on that basis also we can designate the biodiversity. Okay, then your species biodiversity. So species is simply a group of population. Okay, suppose you can see there are in a jungle there are frogs, snakes, birds, various type of carnivorous animals, herbivorous animals. Each of them are individual species. Okay, so each of them are species, and you can see the variety or diversity in this in this form. Okay, they are assigned together in the topic, that is species diversity. Next is your ecosystem diversity. As we know, there are various type of ecosystems sustaining on our planet Earth, right? So based upon the different type of habitats or the different type of ecosystem, the diversity is being classified as ecosystem diversity. Okay, here you can just have a pictorial representation of the three levels of diversity. First one is your genetic diversity, where you can see all the deers physiologically they appears to be same, but genetically they are different. Okay, and no two individuals are similar. Okay, as for example, we are human beings. In your classroom you might observe various students, right? Boys belonging to two different categories, boys and girls. But among the boys also, each and every boy or each and every girl among the girls are different, right? Even though they belong to the same category, that is human being, but still their height is different, their hair color is different, their face is different, isn't it? So this happens due to the diversity in our genes. Okay, or at genetic level. Then you see in the middle portion there is a species diversity. Species means group of population. Okay, so here you can see there are various type of species. Here you can see the plant species, the bird species, dragonfly, etc. Okay, each of them are a species. So here you can see there are diverse variety of species, right? And then you can see the ecosystem diversity. Under the ecosystem diversity, you can see there are mountains, slopes, rivers, coastal areas, okay, dry areas. So based upon that, the diversity is being labeled as an ecosystem diversity. Okay, the genetic diversity, this level includes the diversity of the genes, like I said earlier. So it is this type of diversity that give rise to different varieties. Okay, suppose you see there are different type of maize. Okay, so you can see the maize is a species, and there exist different varieties. So how is it possible? It is possible due to the variation in the genes. Okay, in broad, genetic biodiversity covers the genetic changes that occurs in number of structure of genes in the same species, which gives different characteristics, aesthetic features, and behavior. Now, for example, like I said, the Homo sapiens, that means we human beings, okay, we are not exactly alike. Okay, we have some differences in shape, size, body color, hairstyle, etc. Okay, which makes us unique, isn't it? So each person is genetically unique, obviously, even though we have our own set of genes. Okay, we have our own type of genes for which we are different from the others individuals. Likewise, genetic biodiversity covers different varieties of a single species. As for example, you can see there are breeds of dogs, okay, or the rose flowers. You can see they all belong to the same category but of different varieties. Okay, so the rose flower, you can see there are pink varieties, red varieties, white, okay, etc. And the dogs, among the dogs, I am pretty much sure you all must have domesticated a dog sometime or the other in your house, right? So you can get a whole idea from this that the genetic diversity results into a variety or the uniqueness of a species. Importance of genetic diversity: due to pollution, there may be adverse effects on the species, right? Some of the species, and in turn, they may lose fertility. Like, as for example, the crops. If the crops are not resistant enough, if they are susceptible, they will die. Eventually, they will die, and no crop will be yielding, right? And followed by there will be loss of economy, and there will be hunger, starvation, and famine. Okay, which may result into the death of an individual. So this being genetically able to resist such adverse or you can say unfavorable condition will prove to be a boon, isn't it? Right. So in this regard, the genetic diversity is very much important. Okay, for what? For strengthening the immune system, okay, of a particular crop or of a particular animal, you can say, so that they can survive easily in the extreme conditions. Okay, this may be possible for extinction of certain species and certain habitat. If the crops are too much susceptible to a particular group of pests or diseases, they may go into extinction. And if a particular species goes into extinction, then it is a matter of concern for us, because the useful products which would be obtained from those particular species can't be obtained after that, isn't it? So, to summarize the importance of genetic diversity, we can say that it strengthens the ability of species and population first to resist disease, past changes in the climate, and other stress. Okay, you might have heard the term drought-resistant crops. Okay, so what are all these? These are genetically modified crops or genetically able crops to resist such unfavorable conditions. Okay, suppose there is adverse climatic conditions, there is too much hot and arid area. Okay, then some of the plants still grows in that, isn't it? Then you might have observed also some of the animals which are living in the extreme areas, okay, in the extreme northern polar regions as well, right? So how is it possible? It is just possible because they are genetically different, and that with what led to the adaptation in their body, right? So gene variation underpin the capacity to evolve and the flexibility to adapt. Like I said, the variety in the genes enables species to adapt in any condition, in any environment. Okay, the species diversity, that is diversity among the species. Okay, The diversity among the number of species and their different individual varieties that live in a particular area at a given time is called species biodiversity. So each species is distinct from every other species, isn't it? Like we human being species are different from the dog species, from the cat species, from the maize species, isn't it? So each of us are of different species, and our lifestyle, behavior, breeding capacity, etc., these are all different, right? So species diversity is usually measured by the total number of species within a defined area. Okay, suppose in a particular area, in a particular forest, maybe you have been to a particular forest, and there you have observed different type of species. So based upon the number of these species of a particular category, so you can have an idea about the diversity of species in that particular area. So importance of species diversity, first and foremost, in terms of food chain, it is very much important. If there are no species diversity, that means there will be an imbalance in the ecological cycle or imbalance in the food chain. As for example, so there is a very beautiful pictorial representation. Okay, in the first picture line, in the first row, you can see there is a tree, right? And the deer, being the herbivore, okay, is obtaining his food from this tree, and the lion, being the carnivore, is obtaining his food, his meal from the deer, isn't it? So just for 1 second you think there is no deer in the middle. So what would happen? If there is no deer in the middle, eventually the trees will grow in large number, in huge number, isn't it? And the other thing that will happen is the lion will die out of hunger, out of starvation, isn't it? So because of the availability of species, there is a continuous running of the food chain. In the next row you can see there is a flower, and the butterflies, they obtain nectar from the flower, okay, and also in turn helps in pollination of the flower. Okay, so if the butterflies are not there, then the flower won't be able to grow, okay, because they need to be pollinated, okay, because the flowers can't move from one place to another by themselves. So their spores, reproductive spores, need to be pollinated, okay. So the butterfly helps in this regard, okay, does this work of transportation of the pollen grains. Then now you see, if there are lots of butterfly, then butterfly, they will be obtaining nectar very soon from the flower, okay. This will in turn affect the area. So for controlling the butterfly, there need to be another species, a variety of species, another variety of species, that is the frog species in this case. Now if there are lots of frog species in a particular area, then they will eat away all the butterflies, and in turn the flowers will get affected, isn't it? So for controlling the frog species, there is another variety of species, which is a snake species, okay. So likewise, if the number is very much high, then obviously there will be no frog, right? And if there will be no frog, the butterfly will increase and the ecosystem will be imbalanced. So for controlling the snake species, there is another variety of species, that is the hawk species, or you can say the eagle species, okay. So likewise, what do you observe? We have observed that the variety of species helps in maintaining a balance in the environment, okay. This is a very important point, okay. Next, at last we can conclude that if one species is getting disappeared from this earth, its function cannot be replaced completely, isn't it? So obviously, if the butterfly is extinct, then there will be no one, just for as per this diagram. If the butterfly is extinct, there will be no one to pollinate the flowers, because the frogs are not going to get this pollination done, isn't it? So it is very much tough to adjust or replace the work of that particular species in absence of it, okay. So the ecosystem diversity, like I said, based on the different type of habitat, we have this ecosystem diversity, okay. So we know there are different type of ecosystem, ranging from forest to terrestrial to grassland, isn't it? There are different type of ecosystems, such as aquatic, terrestrial, desert ecosystem, okay. All these ecosystem have diversity in them, okay. And each and every individual species which are living in the particular ecosystem has adapted itself so that it can live in that environment. As for example, the fish, they develop fins, they develop gills for respiration, right? They have streamlined bodies, so their bodies adapted especially for living in the aquatic region, okay. And in the desert, say for example the camel, you can see the camel, they have very large eye hairs, okay. I don't know what it is called, eyeliner or something, I don't know, but eye hairs, eyelid, okay, they have very large one. And in turn they have very large webbed foot, okay, for walking into the sand, okay. So these are certain adaptations which makes a particular species to sustain in their own ecosystem, okay. So and uh, each of these species, they play a very important functional role in their own ecosystem, which is called as niche, okay, and that helps in maintaining a balance in the environment. So now I guess you can have a idea of what this term biodiversity, or what is the importance of biodiversity is, okay. Now, importance of biodiversity, first and foremost, balancing our ecosystem and environment. Obviously, we have gone through various examples. Next is food chain. If there is diversified form of species, if there is biodiversity, there will be continuous cycling of the nutrients among the different levels, okay. Um Aesthetic value, obviously, aesthetic means that is related to the beautiness, okay. Obviously, in school, college, or any other government buildings, okay, we do have this small garden, flower garden, okay. So what it adds, it adds beauty to the institution, it adds beauty to the surrounding, okay. So if there is, suppose if there is only a single type of flower, and that is also a colorless type of flower, okay, that we won't find it interest, okay. It would be just like having, seeing a bunch of green leaves, etc., okay. So provide varieties of food, yes, of course. You can see in the market, if you go and see, there are lots of vegetables, and each of the vegetables are from different species, and among the vegetables also we might observe different varieties, okay. So in this regard, you can see they are providing us with a different variety of food with different nutritional values. Had there been no biodiversity, no varieties, we would obtain only a single type of nutrient we would have obtained, and that would lead to various type of abnormalities in our body, isn't it? That provides medicinal resources. This is very important. Prior to the allopathic industries, okay, dominating the world, there was the traditional healing practices, okay, under which the traditional healers, they used to collect the raw materials from directly from the forest area or from the animals, okay, and then they used to formulate it, and they used to ask the patient to have that medicine, okay. They used to apply, or they used to take it orally, okay, or they used to fume it in the form of gas, they used to smell it, okay. So this sort of medicines is obtained, is possible, the varieties of medicines is possible due to the variety of the life form, variety of the sources, okay. So in that regard, the biodiversity is also very much important, okay. Productive values, obviously, not only the diversified form of life provides us with food, medicine, but also with clothing. Now, as for example, the silkworm provides us with silk, right? The sheep provides wool, right? And leathers are produced, leathers, purses, honey, etc., wax, etc., for candles, etc. These are used, these are obtained, right, from the various sources. So had there been no biodiversity, it would not be possible. To summarize, biodiversity provides different food and non-food products, aesthetic value, functioning ecosystem that supplies oxygen, clean air and water, pollination of plants, pest control, and many other ecosystem services. So recreation, as we have seen in earlier picture, in the earlier slides, this is basically the sporting activities, or like camping, hiking, fishing, etc. Okay. Now, biogeographic zones of India. So what do you mean by biogeographic zones? These are those particular zones which are highlighted based on some specific species found on them, okay, and those particular species, they provide invaluable information to the ecologist and natural resource managers for understanding large scale process that affect species ecosystems, okay. Here you can see there are the different biogeographic zones of India marked in this map, okay. In total, there are 10 biogeographic zones of India recognized till now, okay. The first one is the Trans-Himalayan region, then comes your Himalayan zone, Indian desert zone, semi-arid zone, Western Ghats, Deccan Plateau, Gangetic Plain, Northeast region, coastal region, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, so here the various biogeographic zones are marked in the map. Okay, so first is your Trans-Himalayan region. It constitutes of 5.6% of the total geographic area. Okay, and mostly it includes the high altitude, cold and arid mountain areas of Ladakh, Jammu and Kashmir, North Sikkim, Lahore, and Spiti areas of Himachal Pradesh. Okay, so this zone is very cold in nature, and it is mostly situated in the northern part of our country. This zone has sparse alpine steppe vegetation and that harbors several endemic species and is favorable habitat for the biggest population of wild sheep and goats in the world. Okay, you will see abundant of wild sheep and goats are found in this particular area. Okay, and other rare fauna includes the snow leopard and the migratory black-necked crane. Okay, the cold dry desert of this zone represents an extremely fragile ecosystem, not to forget. Okay, so these are some of the animals and plant species which are found mostly in the Trans-Himalayan region. Here you can see the mountain goat, okay, and you can see the black-necked crane, okay, the hispid hare, etc. Next is your Himalayan zone. It constitutes about 6.4% of the total geographical area, okay, and it includes some of the highest peaks in the world. Okay, the Himalayan zone makes India one of the richest areas in terms of habitat and species. The alpine and subalpine forest, grassy meadows, and most mixed deciduous forest provides diverse habitat for endangered species of bovids such as burl, ibex, markhor, Himalayan tahr, and takin. So other rare and endangered species restricted into this zone includes hangul and mouse deer. Okay, so these are the species found mostly in the Himalayan region. Indian desert zone, mostly it covers the area of Thar desert and Kutch desert of Gujarat, a small portion of the Kutch desert of Gujarat. Okay, Indian desert zone, constituting 6.6% of the total geographic area, constitutes the desert region of India, that is the Thar and the Kutch deserts. Okay, the Indian desert zone has large expanse of grassland that supports several endangered species of mammals such as wolf, Karakal desert cat, and birds of conservation interest such as the Hobra bustard and the Great Indian bustard. And not to forget, you will find camels in the desert. We all know it, right? Then desert cat, etc. There's some of the desert grasses. Semi-arid region. This region constitutes 16.6% of the total geographic area. It is a transition zone between the desert and the dense forest of the Western Ghats. Here you can see in the map. Okay, the semi-arid region is in between the desert area and the Deccan Plateau. Okay, and the dense Western Ghats. So the semi-arid region also has several artificial and natural lakes and marshlands. Okay, marshlands are the wetlands. Okay, the dominant grass and palatable shrub layers in this zone supports the highest life biomass. Okay, now marshlands, these are wetlands. Obviously these are lands which is covered with water mostly. Okay, marshlands, you can say marshlands are moist lands. You can say the dominant grass or palatable shrub layer in this zone supports the highest wildlife biomass. The several species of sambar and chital are restricted to the better wooded hills and moisture valley areas respectively. So the lion, an endangered carnivore species, mostly the Gir lion, okay, found in the Gir forest of Gujarat. The lion, an endangered carnivorous species restricted to a small area in Gujarat. Karakal, jackal, and wolf are some of the endangered species that are characteristics of this region. So let's go through the pics. Okay, these are the plants and animal species which are found in the semi-arid region of India. Okay, Western Ghats, it constitutes only 4% of the total geographic area. It is one of the major tropical evergreen forests. Tropical evergreen forest means which remains green towards the year. The leaves, whose leaves remains green towards the year. Okay, as you can say. Now, in India, and represents one of the two diversity hotspots. Okay, Western Ghats are home to viable population of most of the vertebrate species. Okay, found in peninsular India. What do you mean by vertebrate species? The species which have notochord, that is the backbone, like we animals. Obviously we are animals. We are social animals. We human beings do have, right? So the organisms which contain this backbone are called as vertebrate species. Okay. Now significant species endemic to this region include nilgiri langur, lion-tailed macaw, Gizzard's giant squirrel, Malabar civet, Nilgiri thar, and Malabar grey hornbill. Okay, the Travancore tortoise and Kent turtle are two endangered species restricted to small areas in the central Western Ghats. So here are the animal species which are found mostly in the Western Ghats. Okay. Deccan Plateau. Deccan Plateau is India's largest biogeographic zones, making 42% of the total geographic area. Okay, so this is the largest in terms of the total geographical area. Okay, it is a semi-arid region that falls in the rain shadow areas of Western Ghats. The biogeographic zone of peninsular India is by far the most extensive zone, covering India's finest forests, particularly in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Odisha. Okay, so here you can see a varied type of forest. Okay, among which you will just look at to the second picture, forest picture. Okay, mainly consisting of teak plants. So majority of the forests are deciduous in nature, that means which shade they live in a particular season, right? But there are regions of greater biological diversity in the hill ranges. The zone comprising of deciduous forest, thorn forest, and degraded scrublands supports diverse wildlife species. Obviously, there are a variety of topological features. This will support a diversity of species. Species found in this region are chital, sambar, nilgai, and chausinga, barking deer and gore, elephant in Bihar, Orissa, and Karnataka, Tamil Nadu belts, wild buffalo in the small area of the junction of Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, and swamp deer. Okay, so these are the pictures of some of the plants and animal species which are found in the Deccan region. Next is your Gangetic Plain, right? So the Gangetic Plain constitutes about around 10 to 10.8% of the total geographical area. It is topographically homogeneous for hundreds of kilometers. Homogeneous means of same type. Okay, the characteristic fauna of this region includes elephant, buffalo, swamp deer, hawk deer, hispid deer, and not to forget the national aquatic animal of India, that is the river dolphin. Okay, in addition to this, we find this gharial. Okay, and the Gangetic region. Okay, gharials are just like the crocodiles, but they have this long snout. Okay, so these are some other examples of plants and animals which are found in the Gangetic region, like the sloth bear, okay, chausinga, etc. Northeast region. Northeast region constitutes about 5.2% of the total geographic area. This region represents the transition zone between the Indo-Malayan and Indo-Chinese biogeographical region, as well as being a meeting point of the Himalayan mountains and the peninsular India. Okay, the Northeast is thus the biogeographical gateway for much of India's fauna and flora. Now, what is fauna and flora? I think I've discussed about it earlier also in my previous classes. So fauna is the total animal species which is found in a particular area, and flora is the total plant species which is found in a particular area. Okay, so many of the species contributing to this biological diversity are either restricted to the smaller localized areas or the Khasi Hills. Okay, and when it comes to Khasi Hills, a very important and very well-known plant species comes to my mind, which is the pitcher plant. Okay, as you can see in the last right corner, lower right corner, there is a picture is there. Okay, which is just like a jar with a lid on it, isn't it, hanging through a leaf. So this jar, what happens, this jar used to lure the insects. Okay, it is very brightly and beautiful colored. So when the insects comes and tries to obtain its nectar from the jar, what happens, it slips and drops down into the lower portion. Okay, this particular basal portion, and that basal portion contains these hydrolytic enzymes, okay, digestive enzymes, okay, which digests or kills the insects and obtains this nutrient from it. Okay, mostly the nitrogens. This type of pitcher plant, they grow mostly in the nitrogen deficient soils, and this plant is endemic to the Khasi Hills of India. Okay, So apart from that, you can see there is the state bird of Nagaland, that is the hornbill, state animal of Assam, that is rhinoceros, one-horned rhinoceros, and the state flower of Assam, that is Rincostylis retusa, which is an orchid, okay, and the state animal of Manipur, that is Shanghai, okay. Lots of endemic plant species can be found in the northeast region. As for example, you can see there is a shiroi lily, okay, which is a state flower of Manipur, okay. In between the buffalo and the elephants, you can see there is a flower which is known as shiroi lily, okay. It is the state flower of Manipur, and you can see there are hollow gibbon, which is found in Mizoram, okay, and some other species. Next is your coastal region. Coastal region is mainly the area between the sea and the land, okay. So coastal region constitutes about 2.5% of the total geographic area, with sandy beaches, mangroves, mudflats, coral reefs, and marine angiosperm pastures, okay. The coastal line from Gujarat to Sundarban is estimated to be 5,423 km long. A total of 25 islets constitute the Lakshadweep Island, which are of coral origin and have a typical reef lagoon system rich in biodiversity. However, the densely populated Lakshadweep Island virtually have no natural vegetation, okay. So here you can see different type of species. Mostly the coconut species, they grow in the coastal area. They love to grow in the coastal areas, right? Palm species, like you can see there is a pigeon, okay, the salt grasses, etc., the marine grasses, and of course the dolphin. Now, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This constitute 0.3% of the total geographic area, are one of the 3 tropical most evergreen forests, okay. The islands house an array of flora and fauna not found elsewhere. These islands are centers of high endemism and contains some of India's finest evergreen forests, and supports a wide diversity of corals. Now, what do you mean by endemism? That is, I think you have heard about the term endemic. So what is endemic? Endemic means, suppose in case of plants, so if a particular plant is found only in a particular region only, nowhere else, then it is termed as endemic, okay. So Andaman and Nicobar Islands is a home to a large number of species which are endemic to only the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, okay. So in India, endemic island biodiversity is found only in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Some of the endemic fauna of Andaman and Nicobar Island includes Narcodaman hornbill, okay, South Andaman crate, okay, which is snake, and of course not to forget the corals. Now, biodiversity pattern. The biodiversity pattern relates to the pattern observed in the occurrence of a variety of life forms. So throughout the world, you can see there are different type of species occurring, okay. So how they are occurring, in which pattern? So this is what related to the biodiversity patterns. So ecologists have discovered 2 broad kind of diversity pattern, that is the latitudinal gradient and the species area relationship. So let us go through them one by one. So latitudinal gradient, it states that if we move from the equator region towards the polar region, the diversity will decrease, okay. That means mostly the large amount of diversity can be seen in the equatorial region, okay. And obviously we know the earth is divided into 3 zones, that is the torrid zone, right, temperate zone, and the frigid zone. Torrid zone is the centermost portion of the earth, or the equatorial portion of the earth, up to the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, where the sunlight falls directly, right. So in that portion, there will be equal amount of both the summer season and rainy season, isn't it? Means both the factors will work out equally in equal concentration. So in that regard, there will be abundant of growth of this different type of species, okay, because that portion will prove to be a favorable one, right. And if we move slightly away from the equator, then the favorable parameters starts to decrease, okay. It tends to low. In turn, we cannot see a huge diversity in those areas, okay. So the latitudinal gradient type of biodiversity pattern states that there is a regular pattern as we move from the equator to the poles, okay, in terms of this species diversity. That is, we will observe the maximum diversity at the equator, and it decreases as we move towards the poles. Species area relationship. According to Alexander von Humboldt, who was a German geographer and naturalist, he observed that the relation between area and the species richness found in it, okay. He found that as he increased the area of observation, the plant and animal diversity increased, but only up to a certain level. Suppose if you are in a particular field and I have asked you to survey around 20 meter of your surrounding, okay, from where you are standing, so and report the number of species you found in it, right? So it is very obvious that in the first category you will find maybe few number of species, followed by, if you increase the radius and search the area, right, you will find a number of species, more number of species, isn't it, compared to the first one, smaller category, smaller radius category. But that will be also up to a certain extent. If we think that if we keep it on increasing our radius and survey the area, we will get a number of species, very high number compared to that of the last earlier one or first one, right? Then it is not the case. Okay, definitely with the increase in area we observe the increase in species diversity, but only up to a certain extent or certain level. Mathematically, it can be explained by the equation log s equal to log c plus z log a, okay, where the term, different term means this different things, which is which you can see in the slide, right, where s equal to species richness, c equal to y-intercept, z equal to regression coefficient, and a equal to area, and beside it there is a graph of this particular equation. Okay, you can go through it. Now next is global biodiversity hotspot. Now what do you mean by global biodiversity hotspot? So before understanding this term, we need to understand the meaning of hotspot. So hotspot are a region where there is richness in the biodiversity, okay, in terms of the number of endemic species, okay, that is the species which are found only in that particular area. On the other hand, there also the degree of threat is very much high. Okay, so hotspot refers to that particular area where there is endemic species richness, but also the degree of threat is very much high. Okay, the concept of hotspot was developed by Norman Mayers in 1988. Biodiversity hotspot represents only 2.3% of the total Earth's land surface. Okay, now what is the criteria for biodiversity hotspot? That is, how can you designate a particular area as a biodiversity hotspot? Very simple, there are two categories, or there are two criteria. First one is, there must be at least 0.5% or 1500 species of vascular plants. Vascular plants are those plants which have vascular bundles, that is the xylem and phloem in them. Okay, as endemic, must contain at least 0.5% or 1500 species of vascular plant species as endemic in that particular area. And the second category is criteria is, there must have been at least 70% loss of its primary habitat, or in other sense we can say there must be only 30% vegetation available in that particular area. That means what? First criteria is stating that there must be species richness, that is endemic species richness, and the second criteria is stating that there must be a threatening condition to the habitats. Okay, that means 70% of the habitat should have been destroyed. Okay, so in that if this is the case, then you can designate a particular area as a biodiversity hotspot. So there are 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world, spread across different parts of the world. Okay, India has 4 biodiversity hotspots, that is the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, the Indo-Burma region, and the Sunderlands, which includes the Nicobar group of islands. Okay, so here you can see the different biodiversity hotspot of India. Okay, represented in various colors. And so let's begin. First one is the Himalayas. Okay, so mostly the Himalayas region contains this evergreen forest of oak and conifers to alpine meadows at much higher elevations. Okay, where trees can't grow because of the harsh climate and only ground hugging plants thrive. Okay, so if we increase the elevation, if you go to the height of the Himalayas, we will find the number of trees are reducing. The height of the trees is reducing to the ground hugging plants. Okay, due to the adverse climatic conditions prevailing in that particular area. So among the innumerable animal species to be seen here is the charismatic western tragopan. In the higher reaches amongst the snowy peaks roams the solitary snow leopard. Sometimes the snow leopard can also be seen roaming among the higher reaches. Okay, and the favorite prey, as well as the favorite prey of this snow leopard can also be seen, that is the barrel and the ibex. Okay, so here you can see the pictorial representation of different species which are found mostly in the Himalayan region. You can see the snow leopard, you can see the ground hugging plant. Okay, you should not misunderstand it with that one, Rafflesia. Okay, this flower is not Rafflesia, this is something else. Okay, Indo-Burma region. The Indo-Burma region, one of the largest hotspot, covers Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia and various other countries. Okay, so the hotspot comprise places that are fed with rich alluvial soil, mostly from the Ganga and the Brahmaputra, right? Many of these species found here, like the Annamite, Munjak and grey crowned crocus, have rarely been seen by human eyes. Okay, now these are the various plants and animal species which are found in the Indo-Burma region. Okay, Western Ghats. The International Union of Conservation of Nature has declared the Western Ghats, which runs from the north to south just beyond the western coast of India, as a World Heritage Site. The mountain tropical rainforest on these slopes shelter a variety of animals like tigers, black panthers and leopards. In the southern forest lives the arboreal and shy lion-tailed macaques, who are in grave danger of going extinct as man activities are causing their forests to shrink. Okay, during the monsoon, one can spot the white pig-nosed purple frog in this forest. So these are the pictorial representations of various plant and animal species which are found in the Western Ghats. You can go through it. So here you can see the purple nose frog. Okay, and on the left to it you can see there's a particular flower, isn't it? So this particular flower, it blooms once in every 12 years. Okay, that's why it is a very important. This flower is of very much importance. Okay, to the biological world. Okay. And then is your Sunderland. Okay, the part of India that falls in the Sunderland hotspot is the Nicobar Islands. Interestingly, it extends to the tectonic plates under the Indian Ocean. The hotspot is a home to iconic species like the orangutans, pigtail langurs, javans and Sumatran rhinos, and proboscis monkeys found only in the Borneos. Sunderland also has the distinction of being home to the world's largest flowers such as the Rafflesia, which measures 1 meter in diameter. So let's have a look. Okay, so these are the various plants and animal species which are found in the Sunderland region, such as the Rafflesia, which I have stated, the proboscis monkey, okay, the orangutans, as you can see. Now here you see the Rafflesia is the largest flower in this world. Okay, the diameter of which measures 1 meter. Okay, so in the upcoming class we shall be learning about the biodiversity of India. Okay, under which we shall be dealing with these various topics. Okay, such as India as a mega biodiversity nation, endangered and endemic biodiversity of India with special reference to Northeast India. Okay, so that's all for today. If you have any query, please do let me know. Okay, so thank you very much.